There is a 50-square-mile stretch of Yellowstone National Park that has no roads, no residents, and most unusually, no legislation to charge people for any crime that may be committed there. Welcome to the Zone of Death, the only place in the world where you could legally get away with murder. So what makes this possible? Well, Yellowstone National Park is federal land, and it was created in 1872 before Wyoming, Montana, and Idaho officially became US states. When the state lines were drawn, they were done so that the vast majority of the park is in Wyoming, but jurisdiction for the entire park was given to the state of Wyoming alone, even though parts of the park extend into the neighboring states of Idaho and Montana. It's the thin stretch of parkland in Idaho that's known as the Zone of Death, due to the legal loophole this situation has created. The loophole is this: even though the state of Wyoming has federal jurisdiction over the Zone of Death, the Sixth Amendment to the Constitution of the United States specifies the right to a trial by a jury composed of residents in the federal district and the state where the crime was committed. In other words, the jury has to be in Idaho, but only the portion of Idaho that falls under Wyoming's jurisdiction, aka the Zone of Death. The catch is that no one lives in this zone, so calling a jury would not be possible, and no jury would mean no trial. The same situation could also occur in Montana, where Yellowstone overlaps with the state, but there are at least a few residents there, so a jury could still possibly be formed. Idaho, with no residents in the Zone of Death, is the area of concern, and because it's federal land, the states are not able to close the loophole themselves. That can only be done by the federal government. The loophole was eventually brought to the attention of the federal government by a law professor at Michigan State named Brian Kalt, but the government chose to do nothing about it. Despite making national headlines and serving as inspiration for the novel Free Fire and the horror film Population Zero, the Zone of Death continues to exist to this day. So what is the solution to this strange law? Well, it's really quite simple. All it would take is for Congress to redraw the federal district lines so that Wyoming, Montana, and Idaho each has jurisdiction over its own respective state, instead of Wyoming holding sole and exclusive jurisdiction over all three. Wyoming would be Wyoming, Montana would be Montana, and Idaho would be Idaho. That seems to make sense, yet there's no indication from the federal government of that happening anytime soon. Still, it's not recommended to use the Zone of Death loophole as a legal defense. A hunter who illegally shot an elk in Yellowstone tried to do just that in 2007, where he invoked his Sixth Amendment rights when the government tried him in the District of Montana. The judge simply threw out the defense, calling it a harmless error to move him to another more populated district. Some people saw this as a violation of constitutional rights, and he should be appealed in a higher stakes case. But the hunter made a plea deal, and the loophole still remained unresolved. Whatever is going on there, the Zone of Death seems to be appropriately named. It's clearly well protected, and somehow still manages to attract tons of visitors to it each year, despite having a possible drastic outcome.